Hey everyone, Charlene here. I have a really fun and unique way to step up your cards. I have this awesome new die set from Pink and Main. This is the horizontal step card dies, and it creates this amazing step fold card. I'll give you a sneak here of what our finished card is going to look like. Anyone can use these dies, and the best part, no measuring, which I love. So I'm going to grab the main piece here that's going to cut out our card base. This will create all of the scores and cut lines that we need for a fun fold. I have a piece of cardstock here that's cut to 6 inches and it's 8.5 inches tall. It's going to easily fit our die on here. Now you could use a half sheet of cardstock as well if you preferred, and I would suggest just taping the cardstock to the die in that instance because it's going to be the same size as all the way around the edges if you use just a half sheet of cardstock. I am going to angle my die just slightly here on my die cutting machine. That will help ensure that everything cuts nice and easily. So now I'll go ahead and run this through. Finished cutting that, so let's go ahead and take off the top plate here, and you can see this perfectly has cut out the card base. You can use the back of the packaging, which is really handy. It has all the instructions on how you want to fold. So there are 2 score lines here, 2 score lines here, and a score line here, and 2 score lines here. So the bottom 2 score lines are going to be a mountain fold. That means that the fold is going to come up towards you. The next 2 score lines are a valley fold. They're going to fold away from you. The 2 back score lines are also mountain fold, folding up towards you, and then the main center score line is also a mountain fold. So I like to start from the back. Once I've got everything just kind of gently started, then I come to the back, then I work my way down to the bottom of the front of the card. I do recommend grabbing a scoring tool and making sure that all of your score lines are nice and burnished. It gives you this really fun stepped up shape for your card, and it's just unique and different. When it's flat, it will fit perfectly in an A2 sized envelope, but when it's sitting up, it has that nice fun shape. And of course, you can still easily write a message on the inside of this. And because it's a colored card base, if you want to put a white piece of cardstock in there, you can use the same white piece of cardstock that you cut out for the front of the card. That'll make sense later when you see the entire piece. There are several other dies included in the set. So in all, you have 2 different side pieces and 1 bottom piece, as well as the main center piece that cut out insets, and then you have the 4 stitched panels. I'm going to go ahead and grab those 4 stitched detail panels and cut them out from a piece of white cardstock. I've cut out all of the stitched detail pieces, and now I'm going to grab those inset die pieces. These inset die pieces can be cut from the stitched panels, or you can cut them directly from the card base. So if you cut from the stitched panel, you're going to get the color of that card base showing through. If you cut from the card base, you get an open negative space. So both would be very pretty. It just depends on what you are wanting to have your final card look like. So I'm going to tape these to the stitched detail pieces. If you are worried about lining things up, you could always cut out the inset detail die first and then line up your stitched panel die around it and then cut that piece out. I think you do lose some of the fun raised detail that you get from the inset piece, so I like doing it with the stitched panel first. So I'm going to pop out now all of those little extra pieces. I did want to show you there are 2 different patterns on these side inset dies. I did cut out 2 of this pattern here on the right, but you could use one or both depending on what you like. I have all of our pieces ready to go here now, so I will add some glue to the back of the bottom stitched panel. I'll go all the way around the piece, just adding a little bit of glue. You don't want to add too much because then it could smush out around. And then I'm just going to dot along on the center inset areas, just enough to ensure that it gets held down well. I'll center it in the middle of that bottom area that's beneath the two first score lines there, and I'll just center this, and then I can always flatten my card back down and smooth everything in place. Now I have the large square piece. I'll do the same thing, adding glue all the way around the edges and then dotting along in the center. I'm going to line this up in the center of that square front. I want to make sure that there is equal space on the three sides, the right, left, and top, and that'll naturally give me the same amount of space on the bottom. I've added glue to one of the side accent pieces, and I'm going to adhere it to the center of this back stepped up area here, just above the score line. I'll do the same thing on the right hand side, making sure that my patterns align. This die set does include a nice sentiment that you could use on the card, and this would easily create a finished card. I'm going to bring in the Pet Angels stamps and dies, which are very, very sweet and great for sympathy cards for pets. You have both a cat and a dog, a rainbow, lots of hearts and paws, and some very sweet sentiments as well. I'll start by stamping out the rainbow and the sweet little puppy dog here. I am using some alcohol marker friendly black ink, and I did stamp this twice just to ensure a nice solid black line. I'm going to color my dog so that it is fawn colored, so I'll use YO 2.5, 2.3, and 2.2. Starting here with the 2.5, the darkest, and I'm going to bring this on the sides of each of the paws. I'll also bring it up along the sides of the dog on each side. I'll take it underneath the dog's collar, and then I'll bring the 2.3 and run it right along those edges of the 2.5. I'm also going to bring it all the way up along the edge of the dog on each side, as well as underneath the neck. Then I can work that ink in towards the center. I'll bring some 2.3 along the edges of the paws, and then switch over to the 2.2, which is the lightest of the colors, and run that along all of those edges, working my way all the way around and bringing the color in all the way towards the center. I am going to repeat that a second time to help the color blend and to make it more bold. I'll put a tiny bit of 2.5 at the edge of the body by the tail, and then bring in the 2.3 for the rest. For the head, I am bringing 2.5 along the edges of the head. I'm not putting it anywhere else. I'm going to switch to the 2.3 and blend that out, running my marker along those edges. And I'm going to bring that all the way around the dog's head, working my way in towards the eyes and the mouth, which I will leave open to add in the 2.2. I'll bring the 2.2 in by flicking it back and forth around all of the remaining white spaces. Do that a second time. Now for the ears, I'll bring the 2.5 along the bottom of the ear, and then the 2.3 along the edge of that, leaving a small spot at the top of each ear for the 2.2, repeating a second time. For the clouds and wings, I am bringing in some warm grays. You could use cool grays if you prefer. I have WG3, and I'm bringing it along the little indented areas on the wings. So they're kind of like little triangles on the edges of those wings. I'll bring a small line along the edges of the dog, and then bringing in the WG1 and working it along those edges, blending out the WG3. I'm only going to do this one time because I don't want to have too much gray on my wings. I want them to be mostly white. For the cloud, I will do the exact same thing, but with lighter grays. I've got WG1 to start with, creating those little triangle shapes along the indented areas, as well as underneath the pups. So then I'll switch to WG0 and I'll run this along those edges. This is going to dry back pretty light. For the collar and for the center heart, I'm bringing in some reds. I have R0.5, which is the darker of the two, running this underneath the dog's head since the head is in front of the collar. I'm also going to run it along the edges of the heart to make our heart look a little more 3D. Bringing a lighter color here, R0.4, and running it along the edges of the 0.5 on the collar, and then also in the center of the heart. Then for the dog's nose, I have YO 2.7, and I'm going to leave a teeny tiny spot near the top, which will create a little highlight. For the halo, I'm grabbing the YO 2.3 and running it right along the inside edge of the bottom line, and then along the outside edge of the top line of the halo. Then I'll grab some Y 2.2, which is a little more yellow, and I'll bring it right along the edges of those lines, keeping the lines pretty thin, bringing along the edge of the bottom line as well as the edge of the top line. Coloring the rainbow pink, yellow, and blue, I'll start with R2.4 and R2.2. The 2.4 I'll bring all along the edge here of this top line. Then I'll take the 2.2 and run it along the edge of the 2.4 and color in the rest of the rainbow line. To give us a little bit better of a transition between these two colors, I'm coloring out some of the 2.4 here on my glass mat. Then I'm going to take my 2.2 marker and just lightly scribble in it and pick up some of that ink color. Then I can run that ink color, which is a combination of the two, along the edge of the 2.4 line, and you can see that's helping to really blend the two colors together because we have a transition color that is both of those colors mixed together. To get off any excess, you just kind of color your marker off, and now I'll bring the 2.2 all the way around the edge of the rainbow. For the yellow layer, I'm going to use Y 2.3 as my dark. I'll run this along the edge of that next line in the next section of the rainbow, then blend it out with Y 1.1. I'll blend it and then finish coloring in the remainder of the line. For the third stripe, I'm going with blue-green. I've got some BG 2.3, starting with that around the line on the bottom section of the rainbow. Then I'll blend that out with the 2.1, filling in everything and making sure to run that color along the edge of the 2.3. Grab my warm grays again, and I'm going to do these two top clouds the same way, starting with WG1, adding that shading in any of the areas that have an indentation on the cloud, and then bringing the WG0 along those areas that I colored, as well as the remaining edges of the clouds. Here is our finished cute little pup and rainbow. I'll cut these out here with the coordinating dies, taping them in place with some low tack tape and running it through my die cutting machine. I'm going to stamp my sentiment now, and I've got a piece of light blue cardstock. I've cut it down to 2 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment here in the bottom center. I'll stamp this out in the same black ink, and this sentiment says, "Gone from your lap, but never from your heart," which is very sweet and appropriate for a sympathy pet card. I'll stamp this a second time just to build up that black color so it's nice and bold. I'll bring back in our base here, and I'm going to add glue to the back of our stamped light blue cardstock. I'm adding this to the center of that detailed square. Now I'm doing this because I want there to be a solid piece behind my rainbow and my dog, but I want to keep the fun stitching detail and that nice white border. So I didn't have to do the inset cutting on this main piece, but I did want to show you that for the video so that way you could see what it would look like. I've got a sense now of where I want to put the rainbow and the puppy dog. So I'm going to grab my rainbow and add some glue to the back of it. Then I can line it up in the top center so it just hits along that top area where it goes from blue to white. For dimension, I'm adding foam squares to the back of the puppy dog. I'll remove that release tape and pop the puppy up in the center so that it doesn't block the sentiment, but so that we can still see a little bit of the blue-green stripe of our rainbow peeking out. This would look really cute and sweet just like this, but I'm going to dress it up a little bit more to incorporate some of this blue throughout the entire card. I'm taking that same inset piece that I used for the right and left edges, and I'm cutting it out of some of that same blue cardstock. Then I'll add some glue to the center of the heart-shaped pieces that are the negative pieces on the right hand side here, and then I can use a wax pickup tool here just to grab the little die cut hearts that are in the blue color and inlay them into those pieces. Another way you could accomplish a third color is if you took a piece of blue cardstock, for example, cut it with the stitch die and put it back behind there so that everything that peeked out would be the blue color. I went ahead and finished inlaying all of those blue hearts, and now I'm adding some Galaxy sticky gems. Here is our finished card using the horizontal step card dies as well as the Pet Angels stamps and dies. I think this step card die set is so versatile. It could be used in lots of different ways and it makes things so easy. I hope you all picked up some tips and tricks today. Please be sure to like and subscribe as well as hit that notification bell so that I can continue to bring you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.